Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Cannon Busters, episodes 10, 11, and 12. So we're here with the final episodes of the series, and I'm hoping that this picks back up at least a little bit in the end, because the last 3 episodes left a lot to be desired. And as a reminder, we're doing this just to catch up because I think let me make sure here. I have it written down. On the 1st, actually, I was going to say the 7th, but on the 1st, Shaman King 2021 starts. That's Thursday. So that means next Monday we'll be able to get to that without any issue. So yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to time this out this way, why I've been like rushing these last episodes of this series. But honestly, with how they ended up going anyway, it's like maybe it was a good idea to get through these as it is. Nothing important happened last time, let's be honest. Nothing that mattered. It was mostly slice of life stuff, but even with slice of life stuff, it was poorly written and just not that interesting. There's a little bit of stuff with the prince and Odin, but it was, again, not that important seeming. The most important thing that seemed to happen was the king being killed by his firstborn, the sorcerer, whose name I think has been mentioned, but I can't remember. That was definitely the most important thing that happened, but everything else is just meh. In terms of, but I am interested to see where this goes next. So we are going to find out and see how this ends. See what happens. And if it closes out with less of a bang and more of a, like, boop, then, oh well. It was definitely worth checking out no matter what. And I don't regret doing so. But either way, yeah, we're just going to get on with this last 3 episodes and hope for the best. So, that being said, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episodes. So, that being said, excuse me, I felt that coming. That being said, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. These episodes were better than honestly expected. They were better than the past set and everything, and honestly, they were kind of better than most of the series. But that's to be expected because it's the finale, basically. The 2 episodes at the end here, 11 and 12, were the finale, the 2-part finale episodes, and then the episode before that, it was like strong lead-in into that, so it kind of all worked together. Although, the one before that was still very... No, the one before that was actually more its own thing, actually. Yeah, because it didn't really lead into the finale much of anyway. It was just kind of its own thing, but it still ended up being good. So the first one, episode 10 here, focused on them breaking down and having to get towed to a new town. While there, they end up, while fixing Bessie, they also have to get food and do other stuff, and Philly ends up being accused of murder. When in reality, it's this old man who was, well, when he was young, he was cursed so that his body never physically ages. So, despite being older and everything, he looks like a kid still. Um, and so he's the one behind the murder and everything because he has this complex about being called short and being treated like a kid and everything. Um, and the town is pretty interesting. There's some interesting stuff in it, like the fact that there's three sheriffs, one of which is a cat girl stripper, which is just fantastic. um, I think that's just hilarious and really fun. Um, the kid, or old man, or whatever you want to call him, the enemy, Jojo. Let's just go by his name. Um, he was he was okay. I had no issue with him as an enemy, as an antagonist for this, but he he felt more interesting in his design and everything and the concept than the actual execution. Like actual execution, it's just like, oh, just some bounty hunter who has a short complex and a short fuse. That's pretty much all his character was. I mean, the finger gun thing was like a really fun implementation of that entire gag and everything. But all in all, it still wasn't anything. He wasn't anything special. Um, it's just, yeah, I feel like it had more potential, but it was still enjoyable to watch, and I think that's what did it for me. It was enjoyable to watch. It was fun. It was entertaining, and definitely more so than past episodes have been. Um, and the last two episodes, just reaching Gara's keep and having to deal with the enemy forces of Locke, who had arrived there first and killed everyone just so they could ambush Prince Kelby when he arrived. And it basically leads into this giant action scene where it's like all these different fights and escape attempts and stuff, and it's really cool. It's fun to watch, but I feel like there's two big things about this finale that really stood out. Everything else was just kind of like cool action stuff. It's like, oh hey, Nine is back and he's fighting as well. And it's like we get to see these other characters who we only briefly got a glimpse at, like Bridge and Manic and the ninja, whose name I can't remember. We only briefly got a glimpse at them, but now we're actually getting to see them in actual combat and stuff, and it's like cool. Um, and it's like there's only two things though that like really stood out, like in terms of plot and character and whatnot, that was important, I guess you could say. The first one being Sam, not just the information we got on the cannon busters, that was big, but Sam's entire little character mini arc in these two episodes, these final two episodes. Her entire goal of saving Kelby being her number one mission, and when Philly starts to threaten that because of threatening Kelby, she starts to question his friendship, and actually we see that her internal systems, her automatic systems prioritize Kelby, even after he like yells at her and tells her like that she doesn't matter to him, basically, which again was completely like done out of grief and pain and just anger and whatnot. It was an emotional response to everything that was going down. He was just upset, and that was made clear with what he said later on in the finale. Um, so we see that she's still trying to save him, and she goes full War Golem mode. Like this is her final form, her most powerful form, which we haven't even seen a hint at yet. She's just goes out of control, taking on everyone, and is even threatening Kelby's life by the end there because again I think her systems are just kind of like going insane at the moment because like Philly has him and everything. And it's like he's gonna kill him, but it's like she's got to target Philly, but by doing so, she also has to target Kelby, and it's like. But by the end, she does manage to gain control back, and it's a really good, it's a really interesting mini arc for her character, showing her struggle with this and showing how like the difference between her actual thought processes are with her just automatic functions and like following her missions and whatnot. We see like I like that kind of concept, and I've seen it done in other things, but it's like where this character who's like a machine or something, or like something like that has to fight like between their human and machine sides. Ruby did this with Penny. Um, but yeah, it's like I like seeing that kind of thing, and I think it was done fair here. It wasn't like amazingly handled, but I think it was done well. Um, the other big aspect that really like just felt like the most important part of this all is that the villains won in the end. Despite Sam's War Golem mode, despite even Bessie trying to fight and ending up getting destroyed, despite everything, the villains won. They captured Prince Kelby and got away. And despite taking some heavy hits during that, including one massive punch from Philly, which was like an really the most out of nowhere, like epic punch kind of thing. Like we've seen that in many different things, like where the animation goes black and white and it's very like scratchy and whatnot. It's like that's been shown in many things. Like Ruby has shown that with Yang in the Yellow trailer. We saw that in One Piece. I think a couple of times in One Piece. But various shows have done that where the animation just goes super simple and like very like I guess you could say manga like where it's just the black and white scratchy lines and stuff. And that's always cool, but the way it was done here, it was so out of nowhere. It just like popped up and it didn't have any build up, and that's because usually they do. Usually they have a big build up. Like with One Piece, when Luffy punches Saint Charles, he's already walking towards Charles. We see he's about to attack him. We see that build up, and as we see Luffy getting angrier and angrier. So when he actually reels back and knocks the ever loving shit out of him, it feels like that special animation and everything that was done for that was earned. Like it felt like it was built up to. Kind of the same thing with Ruby, with Yang in the Yellow trailer. It did very much the same thing. Like we saw the build up to that moment, but here it's just like, it just happens super suddenly. It's just one thing's happening, and then all of a sudden it just like blinks into it, and it's like, what? And I'm sure like maybe the animators like, oh, we like seeing this thing in other shows and whatnot too, so let's put it in here. But it's like they could have built up to that attack more. I understand it was supposed to be a surprise attack. I get that, but maybe that wasn't the best attack then to show that with. Maybe they could have done it with a different moment in the episode because it just felt like there wasn't build up to it again. Like that might have even been better if it was like Nine who did it when he attacked the ninja. when they were fighting, when the ninja was doing like the multiple clones and stuff, and Nine attacked him and he slammed him into the wall and everything. That would have been a good moment to do that. But I mean, I get that Philly is kind of the main character in a way. So yeah. But as I was saying, like the fact that the villains actually won and got away is interesting. But it also, along with the kind of like post fight stuff, leads into a second season, and I don't know if it's already like confirmed to be coming. I haven't heard anything about it, so I don't know. I mean, it might already be confirmed, but I don't know. Um, but I think I can give a fair assessment on this here. This series as a whole had problems. It wasn't perfect. It had multiple episodes that were just bad, and there were some points of it that just didn't live up to itself. Um, at the beginning and at the end, it was great, but a lot of that stuff in the middle just kind of meh. It just didn't it didn't keep a consistent quality throughout. And I just feel like it could have been better. But I think part of the reason for it having all these problems was because of the length. I think this needed to be more than 12 episodes, and I think that there needed to be a lot more time put into some of these stories. Some of the stories we saw definitely needed to have a little more put into them, a little more thought, a little more time, a little more just focus. Because some of them just felt like they were like just rushed through, and because of it, it felt like they just weren't well handled. Because it's like you have to get through this plot in an episode, and it's like this plot needs at least 2 episodes. So I think this would have been better if it was double the length instead of 12 being 24 episodes, and having a few more stories, having more time to develop certain characters. Because let's be honest, the Prince and Odin had had little moments in this series, especially in the later half of the season, but could have still had a lot more development. There could have been more flashbacks to stuff before, especially with Kelby and Sam, um, and just more information given at various points through or about just all kinds of stuff from Philly's backstory to Casey's, and just again so many of the places they visited. So I feel like while this series was enjoyable for the most part, minus a couple episodes there, it still had its notable issues. It's it's good, just good. It's not great. It could have been better. It had issues, but it's still serviceably good. And I just feel like if they had taken that time to double the length of the show or just increase it in general, if they had taken the time to put more effort and time into the backstories and flashbacks and whatnot, I feel like it could have been a lot better. And I don't know how the comic goes. I don't know what the comic is like. I probably won't read it because I don't read comics really. So, but I'm hoping that the comic spends a little more time with things because, like, even with some of the villains, like most of the villains here, especially in this final battle, barely got any time to shine throughout this season. The only one that actually we saw much of was the main chick with the floating arm things. I don't know how to describe it, but she was the only one who had build up really. The others were shown very briefly before. The ninja, Bridge, and Manic were shown very briefly before, but never really had a role to play. So their inclusion in this felt kind of like just like, oh hey, these characters are suddenly here too. Um, and the opening, again, I understand that a lot of anime openings don't have to keep like exact in regards to um what's gonna happen, but it's like they got all of the matchups wrong. Nine didn't fight Bridge at all. Philly didn't fight Manic. It's like the matchups were just completely wrong. Um, I don't know. It's just again, I just feel like things could have been handled a little better. Uh, and it would have definitely added a lot. But despite that, I still think this series is worth a watch. And I still think that we need to like encourage shows like this, shows that were originally created as a comic or whatever else by a black creator, and when made into an anime like this or whatever else, are like worked on by black people, starring black people, and just has that kind of focus to it that you don't see in anime. Like even in a lot of dubs, like you'll see a lot of the cast, if not most of the cast, still being white voice actors, and that is changing. Very luckily, that is changing. We're seeing a lot of voice actors like Anais Quinones, I believe her. If I mispronounced that, I really do apologize. Um, and Zeno Robinson, who was Prince Kelby in this. You're seeing actors like them getting a lot more roles, and various other black voice actors, and that's awesome, and I love that. Um, like they're both of them are in the ReZero season two dub. Anais is Echidna, and I believe Zeno Robinson is Garfield. If I remember reading that right, I haven't actually checked out much of the dub yet. I've heard what Echidna sounds like, basically. Plus all the voices I did already know, like Subaru and Rem and all them. Um, Even though Rem hasn't had much of a role to play, but I've first episode and all. But yeah, yeah. I really like that shows like this could gain more traction, and I really hope that we get more stuff like this in the future. Because or at the very least, that more of these black voice actors get a chance to shine in a lot of these dubs. I really believe that they deserve it and that they really can show just an amazing range of skill. Like Zeno Robinson's skill is fantastic. Anais is great. Um, you can hear her besides being Echidna, she's also Harriet in Ruby. She voiced Nessa in the Pokemon that one short anime. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like that 10 episode Pokemon anime project that focused on Sword and Shield characters and stuff. She was Nessa, and I can't remember what it's called for the life of me. I don't think it was Legends. I'm not sure. um, but yeah, it's great to see them getting more roles and great to see more stuff like this being made. And I want to see more of this. So even if this series didn't do great, and whether or not it gets a second season at this point, I still think we should encourage stuff like this for the future. It's definitely worth it. Even if some of the steps don't turn out perfect, it's definitely worth it in the end. Um, so yeah, tell me your thoughts on Cannon Busters down in the comments below. And as a reminder, next week we start Shaman King 2021, the reboot of the old classic anime, and this one is going to follow more closely to the manga. I watched the original anime multiple times. Um, Never read the manga. because I've read a few mangas, but that was never one of them. Um, but I definitely remember quite a few things from the series, but I'll talk more about that when we get to that next week. Um, Either way, yeah, like I said, tell me your thoughts on Cannon Busters down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See you all next time.